Coming up on this Friday edition of Daybreak, China has sent warplanes to its newly declared air defense zone in the East China Sea. This after Korea, Japan and the US ignore Beijing and fly military aircraft through the area. Korea's ruling Senkaku party unilaterally passes a confirmation bill for the head of the State Audit Board, despite strong objections from the opposition bloc. Outraged, the main opposition Democratic Party says it will boycott all parliamentary sessions. Plus, the UN nuclear agency says it has reason to believe North Korea is trying to restart a reactor that experts say would be capable of making plutonium for atomic bombs. Daybreak begins now.
Thanks for tuning in. You're watching Daybreak on Friday, November 29th. I'm Kim Hyun-ji in Seoul. We start with the increasingly tense territorial tussle in East Asia. Well, China has sent warplanes into disputed airspace over the East China Sea shortly after South Korean and Japanese military aircraft flew through the area. China's Air Force spokesman was quoted in Chinese state media as saying that several fighter jets and an early warning aircraft were sent on normal air patrols in the zone on Thursday. Beijing's move comes just a few days after the U.S. flew two B-52 bombers over the zone, and a matter of hours after South Korea and Japan followed Washington's footsteps. This latest dispute has many concerned that it could escalate into an unexpected military conflict. On Wednesday, the U.S. and Japan started their annual joint naval training exercise near the disputed East China Sea islands, known as the Senkaku in Japan and the Diaoyu in China. Korea and China on Thursday held high-level defense talks here in Seoul over Beijing's controversial designation of its military air zone. And despite the South Korean government's protest, China responded by refusing to comply with Seoul's demand for a revised decision. Our Defense Ministry correspondent Han Da-eun has the details.
It looks like the ongoing air zone row in the Asia-Pacific region may escalate further as China is not budging an inch on its newly declared air defense zone, which overlaps with Korea's air defense zone. During the third round of Korea-China defense strategy talks between Korea's Vice Defense Minister Baek Sung-ju and the Deputy Chief of China's People's Liberation Army Wang Guan-dong Thursday, Seoul called for a redrawing of China's air zone in a way that doesn't affect Korea's national interest, but the request was turned down.
China has said it will not accept Korea's request to adjust the air zone.
Wang is known to have said China has no intention of making changes to its new air zone as it was drawn based on China's sovereign territory. Korean Defense Ministry spokesman Kim Min-seok told reporters that Korea has made clear that it cannot accept Beijing's unilateral declaration of the air zone and will push to expand Korea's air defense identification zone so it includes the Korea-controlled island of Yeodo.
Korea is also seeking to expand the air defense zone for our national interest.
Kim added that Seoul has also called for regular discussions on the issue with other regional neighbors. Aside from the hot-button issue of air defense zones, the two countries agreed to strengthen high-level military personnel exchanges and speed up the establishment of a military hotline between their two defense ministries. Han Da-eun, Arirang News.
More on the dicey diplomacy in the Northeast Asian region. The United States reassured its support for Japan in a territorial dispute with China over islands in the East China Sea, further magnifying its tensions with Beijing. Our foreign affairs correspondent Hwang Sang-hee tells us how the conflicting interests of the world's major powers could create a serious geopolitical crisis in the region.
U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel has promised Washington's full support for Japan in countering China's bid to expand its air defense zone. During a phone conversation with his Japanese counterpart Itsunori Onodera on Wednesday, Hagel reaffirmed the U.S.-Japan Defense Treaty applies to a group of disputed islands that are included in China's new air defense zone announced last week. The zone overlaps with one set by Japan and covers disputed islands that are controlled by Japan. It also partly overlaps with that of Korea's, including aerial space above Iodo, a submerged rock mass lying on the two countries' overlapping exclusive economic zones in the East China Sea. Beijing's recent declaration of this new air defense zone could lead to a serious geopolitical crisis in the region. On Monday, the U.S. directly challenged China's air defense zone by flying warplanes through the area without notifying Beijing. China had warned all aircraft to identify themselves before entering the zone. In response, China on Tuesday sent its only aircraft carrier Liaoning into disputed waters in the South China Sea for its first cross-sea training mission. Most analysts say that while China appears firm with its push for a new air defense zone, it is probably not looking for a confrontation at this time. They say China may be pushing its luck, as it may have underestimated Washington's resolve to protect the interests of Japan. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
U.S. Vice President Joe Biden is due to start an 8-day tour to East Asia next week, and he is expected to use the trip to convey Washington's concerns about rising tensions in the region, stemming from recent regional disputes. Kim Hyun-bin reports on how Biden is also expected to reaffirm Washington's commitment to Asia.
Vice President Biden's trip to visit Korea, China, and Japan comes at a time of high tension in Northeast Asia. During his 8-day tour, Biden is expected to urge Tokyo to admit to and apologize for its wartime atrocities in an attempt to ease tensions among the three countries. A senior White House official pointed out on Wednesday that there are a number of difficult legacy issues remaining from the previous century between Seoul and Tokyo, and that the U.S. is continuously encouraging Japan to work with its neighbors. The official added, Biden will clearly express U.S. interests and find ways to manage, mitigate, and ultimately resolve the differences. Another key issue for Biden is the new air defense zone set by China over the weekend, which covers disputed islands in the East China Sea. With the island dispute looming large as a potentially serious geopolitical crisis in the region, Biden is expected to flesh out Washington's foreign policy in Northeast Asia. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
The UN Nuclear Agency says activity at North Korea's main nuclear complex indicates an effort to restart a reactor that could provide it with weapons-grade plutonium. International Atomic Energy Agency head Yukiya Amano said Thursday that activities have been observed through satellite imagery that are consistent with an effort to restart the reactor. However, he noted that without access to the sites, it is difficult to conclusively determine whether the reactor has been restarted. North Korea's Yongbyon complex was shut down in July 2007, and Pyongyang began disabling key plants there in 2008 as a confidence-building step in the six-party denuclearization talks with South Korea, China, the United States, Japan, and Russia. A recent UN report says chronic malnutrition remains a problem in North Korea despite continual improvements in agricultural production. According to a joint statement by the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, about 85% of North Korean households are estimated to have poor food consumption, although this year's harvest saw about a 5% increase in its overall production. The UN agency adds that North Korea needs to especially focus on children's nutrition by improving the diversity and quality of food provided at children's institutions. Turning now to domestic politics. The ruling Saenuri Party on Thursday unilaterally passed a confirmation bill for the head of the State Audit Board. And this, despite strong objections from the main opposition party, which decided to boycott future parliamentary sessions. Park Ji-won reports on a legislature at odds.
The National Assembly has finally voted to confirm lifelong judge Hwang Chan-hyun as the chairman of the nation's audit board, a position left vacant for about 3 months. Hwang's nomination was confirmed with 154 votes out of 300 National Assembly seats at the plenary session on Thursday afternoon, despite fierce objections by the main opposition Democratic Party, which declined to participate in the voting. The DP lawmakers objected to the nomination, citing concerns that Hwang would not be able to maintain the political neutrality and independence of the audit board. However, the confirmation motion was unilaterally brought by the ruling Saenuri Party, which has a majority in the National Assembly. In protest to the unilateral confirmation, Democratic Party leader Kim Han-gil and other DP lawmakers said on Thursday evening they would boycott parliamentary sessions from now on and also take legal action. They said the Speaker of the National Assembly had announced the end of voting, although the main opposition party said it would vote later. The DP said it would decide on its next steps on Friday morning. Meanwhile, lawmakers also passed the audit of the 2012 budget at the plenary session this afternoon, a task that should have been wrapped up by the end of August, but which was delayed by bipartisan wrangling. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye took aim at the National Assembly Thursday and warned that Korea may face an economic setback if it does not pass next year's budget bill in time. And to jumpstart the sluggish economy and add momentum to the slow economic recovery, the president says she will deregulate the service sector. Paul Lee has more.
A recent report by the Korea Development Institute says that Korea's economy is still slowly recovering from the global financial crisis in 2007. The KDI pointed to the nation's sluggish service industry as one of the reasons for the slow economic growth. During a recent meeting at the National Economic Advisory Council, President Park Geun-hye discussed ways to promote development in the country's wide range of service sectors. Her development plan tightly focused on deregulation in order to jumpstart the economy. In order to attract greater foreign investment, President Park laid out plans to create free economic zones for international hospitals and to relax regulations for the number of hospital beds for foreign patients. She also encouraged local health organizations to expand overseas. The next pillar of her development plan focused on Korea's strength in education. President Park's plans to help deregulate international schools in regards to their profits, as well as boost cooperation between local and international universities. Lastly, she laid out plans to streamline the nation's social services, including improved integration of employment and welfare agencies. The president emphasized that local firms will need to take the next step to break into the global market to succeed.
서비스 산업의 발전을 위해서는 좁은 국내 시장만 볼 것이 아니라 넓은 세계 시장을 목표로 서비스 산업도 과감한 혁신과 실용적인 접근을 하는 것이 필요할 것입니다.
President Park also said it was important to keep Korea's economic recovery alive with government spending. Spending measures that will be suspended unless Parliament passes the 2014 budget bill, which she says will deal a blow to the economy and people's livelihoods. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
Independent lawmaker and former presidential candidate An Cheol-soo announced Thursday that he's laying the groundwork for a new political party to debut next year. Our Kim Young-gil has more on the plan and how it is largely expected to reshape the political landscape, which is currently dominated by two parties.
Independent lawmaker An Cheol-soo on Thursday announced he is forming a preparatory committee that will serve as a first step toward the creation of a new political party.
I have created a new committee to lay the groundwork for the formation of a new political party. The committee will listen to what the people have to say and communicate with the public. We'll focus on improving people's livelihoods.
And said the main objective was to bring about political reform and win a lot of seats in the local legislative elections set for next June. He said the main two political parties have made no real effort to reform politics, and it is the Korean people that are paying the price. The ruling Saenuri Party expressed skepticism, while the main opposition Democratic Party offered a cautious welcome.
An Cheol-soo has again failed to give us a concrete vision of his new political party and its ideology. Although he said a new political force is needed to improve the people's livelihoods, he did not say who will be part of the new party.
We hope lawmaker An Cheol-soo's action to create a new party will contribute to Korea's political development. We hope the Advance Committee is thorough in its preparations for the new party's formation and that it does not disappoint the Korean people.
While some have raised the possibility of an alliance between the DP and An's new party, others within the party have expressed the worry that An's new party could split the Liberal vote and hand a victory to the ruling Conservative Saenuri Party in the polls next year. Although An did not say when the new party will launch, he did promise that it would have success in next year's local elections, reform politics, and work to improve life for the general public. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
If you want the latest news from Korea and around the world.
Return to the negotiations. President Park Geun-hye plans, given the current circumstances.
On your way to work or at home.
The legislature will convene a...
Tune into Daybreak on Arirang TV.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said Tuesday.
Thanks for staying with us. Some welcome news on the trade front. Korea posted a record current account surplus last month on the back of strong exports of cars, semiconductors, and mobile phones. Arirang News economics correspondent Hwang Ji-hye has more.
Korea's current account surplus surged to a record high in October when exports topped $50 billion for the first time. The Bank of Korea said Thursday that the surplus came in at over $9.5 billion, up nearly $3 billion from the previous month. The central bank said brisk exports of automobiles, chips, and mobile phones pushed the surplus to the uncharted territory. The October performance also allowed Korea to stay in the black for 21 months in a row.
The favorable economic conditions of developed nations boosted Korea's exports. The stabilized prices of raw materials also helped improve the balance in goods trade.
Exports of goods increased 8.2% from a year earlier to more than $52 billion, while imports rose 5.6% to $45.2 billion. The service account, which includes tourism and shipping, posted a surplus of around $1.5 billion in October, almost double from $870 million in September. Analysts say, however, that the record surplus is possible in part because of the nation's sluggish domestic economy.
A rise in imports prompted by a recovery of domestic demand is critical for the nation's current account balance in the long term.
Despite the slump in domestic demand, this year's current account surplus is expected to set a record high. With the current account surplus for the first 10 months topping $58 billion, analysts say it's likely that the surplus will reach $70 billion for all of this year, well over the government's forecast of $63 billion. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Well, despite strong numbers on the trade front, the profit margins of Korean companies aren't doing as well. Statistics Korea says profitability worsened last year to an average of 4 cents for every dollar of sales. This is the lowest figure since the 2008 global financial crisis. The construction sector was hit the hardest last year with combined losses of $1.9 billion. The state-run agency attributed the drop to a recession in the real estate market, but added that the figures are provisional and that final numbers will be released by the end of this year. Embattled Thai Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra has urged anti-government protesters to end their demonstration after surviving a no-confidence vote in parliament. Anti-government protesters, who are led by a former opposition party lawmaker, rallied through Bangkok Thursday, urging the police to join them in toppling Yingluck and her exiled brother and former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra. Yingluck called on the protesters to clear the streets and handle matters diplomatically through talks. A police spokesman said the main protest has weakened, with around 15,000 people out on Thursday, down from 100,000 last Sunday.
And TGI Friday, everyone, as we kick things off in football. Now, after the Korean national football team went through a ton of criticism throughout the year, looks like they're finally back on track. And the recent form doesn't tell you that, well, the latest FIFA ranking should. Now, with the latest FIFA ranking being released, Korea moves up 2 spots and are now ranked 54th in the world. Now, in their November friendlies against Switzerland and Russia, Korea finished with 1 win and 1 loss, which was good enough to move them up the ranking. While Korea is ranked 4th amongst the Asian nations, Iran moves up to 45th in the world, which makes them the highest-ranked Asian nation, with Japan moving down to 2nd. And staying in football, but over on the women's side. Now, we've been seeing a lot of male footballers head over to England here in the nation, but now we might have a female footballer head over to England as well. That 21-year-old Ji So-yeon, who's currently playing over in Japan, is being sought after by Chelsea Ladies FC in England's Super League. According to her agency, the Chelsea Ladies have made an offer on the Korean international, with a possible signing set to take place earlier next month. Now, Ji So-yeon, who's nicknamed G Messi after Lionel Messi of Barcelona, led the U20 team to a 3rd-place finish back in 2010 and has been long considered one of the best female players in the world. And moving on to baseball, where Choo Shin-soo continues to seek his big contract for the upcoming season. But according to Yes Network, a channel run by the New York Yankees, they already have a set price tag on the Korean slugger. Now, according to Yes Network, should the New York Yankees sign Choo Shin-soo, they're ready to offer him a 5-year deal worth $90 million. They added that his on-base percentage was the most impressive and that he's worthy of getting paid the big bucks. However, the Yankees are still trying to figure out if they should sign Choo or go with the cheaper option of signing Carlos Beltran, who should be worth about 3 years, $35 million. And now moving on to some Thursday night's KBL action, we had one game that took place last night as the Changwon LG Sakers took on Wonju Dongbu Promi. Of course, going into the game here, first quarter, the LG Sakers destroying Dongbu's defense as they outscored them 21-8. Second quarter, Dongbu bounces back, but LG still takes a 35-23 lead going into halftime. Third quarter, Dongbu still trying to climb back up as Lee Sung-jun puts up 7 points in the quarter, but LG, led by super rookie Kim Jong-gyu's 15 points and 7 rebounds, cruises through 70-54 as Dongbu continues to struggle this season. And finishing things off with some Thursday night V-League action, IBK Altos beat GS Cartes 3-0 over on the women's side, with Karina Ocasio putting up 23 attack points, helping IBK move back up to 1st place. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the big matchup here over on the men's side. Hyundai Capital Skywalkers taking on Uricard. Now, both teams neck and neck in the first 2 sets, but Uricard pulls away with the first 2 sets, 29-27 and 27-25. Hyundai Capital is trying to bounce back as Liberman Algames puts up 39 attack points on the night, but 19 errors on the night from Hyundai. Uricard's Choi Hong-suk leading the way with 24 points as Uri takes this match in straight sets, 3-0. And that wraps it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great weekend, everyone, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Happy Friday morning to you. I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your latest weather forecast. Well, we've been waking up to freezing temperature as the country experienced its coldest day of the season, and this morning, no exception. Temperatures plunged to as low as -5 in Seoul and surrounding areas, while most parts of the nation is waking up to freezing condition as well, but it should feel 3 to 4 degrees warmer this afternoon. And we'll get to see lots of sun in the Seoul metro area, but rest of the nation will see a mix of sun and clouds during the day. But with the sunshine, temperatures will be warming well into a single digits in the afternoon. After a cold start to the week, it feels like cold weather refuses to lift, but temperatures should start to climb to around average for the last weekend of November, hovering 10 degrees Celsius in the central region, while down south have double figures over the weekend. And with that in mind, here are the readings for today. Our morning low in Seoul deep down into -5, but will jump to 4. And Daegu and Gwangju started out at -2, but climbed to 7 later. And Busan will have a cold morning low at 0, but see a high of 9 later on. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju will only soar to 9 in the afternoon. Daejeon and Dokdo will also wake up to freezing morning at -4 and 0. And more freezed weather is in store for Mount Kumgang, waking up at -14. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. That's all from me at this hour. Hope you have a wonderful Friday, and back to Yeonji in the studio.
Well, thank you for that, Jian. That does it for now. Stay tuned to Arirang for more stories making headlines in Korea and around the world throughout the day. Thank you for watching.